guys, the furry inflation situation is getting out of hand. Furries are ruining the economy. Fursuits are so expensive now. Look up furry inflation for more info. I'm glad I got to finally do that. Look, I'll just say it, this last week on Twitter has been a nightmare, and I've kind of personally made the full shift to Blue Sky, but when I did return to Twitter just to poke my head in to see what was going on, I noticed that a lot of fursuit makers were expressing concern with some of the coming changes that might come to be in this next year. As a result of the election and president to come being Trump, he did put together some propositions for what he wants to change in his coming presidency. One of which being that he wants to apply tariffs to any sort of imported or exported good from other countries. This affects you and me at the end of the day, anyone in the US that is a consumer, but this also heavily affects any business owners, and that being fursuit makers, who import a lot of their resources and supplies for making a fursuit from other countries. Whether it's the foam for the fursuit, the hot glues, the sewing needles, the thread, the sewing machine, especially the furs too, all these prices will go up as a result of these tariffs if they are put into place. You know, the whole supply versus demand thing, that sort of applies here, but it's more of like the cost of a fursuit, or rather, are they willing to pay the price for that fursuit? Which in the end, it is reasonable because fursuit makers need to make a living, but they also need to survive outside of that. They want to take vacations and have a life outside of fursuit making so that they're not a slave to labor. I've talked about this many times where fursuit makers deserve to price their fursuits at what they think is feasible or reasonable. Feedback obviously is encouraged, but respectfully, of course, not in the sense of, your fursuits are so expensive, you should put down your prices. In this next year, I don't want to hear that at all. I don't want to hear that argument. I don't want to see that drama topic come up on Twitter at all. It is a block on sight for me because I've covered it at least 3 times now on here. But we all understand that fursuit makers kind of deserve to price the fursuits at whatever they think is effective and reasonable. They are selling a product at the end of the day. They're selling their craft, their experience, they're selling the resources that they've turned into this amazing, colorful animal character costume, usually of which are custom made to people's personas, and they're usually trying to make it in a timely manner. A lot of times I found that people really don't regard this, and I've seen time and time again where people have considered fursuit makers as like machines to making fursuits in the end, and that's all they're supposed to do. And if they're not working on fursuits, then it's like, why are you not working on my commission? It's like, I don't know, man. All I know is that being a freelance business owner is stressful, and I have nothing but respect for all the fursuit makers, the furry artists in the fandom who are doing their absolute best to make the best work that they can, but also survive off it, because it must be extremely stressful. I know it's stressful for me, even as a YouTuber. A lot of my income relies entirely upon if you guys enjoy what I do. If you come back and watch it and the algorithm receives it very well, that's it. That is almost entirely my income. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, but I know that fursuit makers and artists who are in the freelance realm rely entirely on the business that they receive. And fursuit makers try to price their fursuits at a point where people would be willing to buy them. But some people just aren't reasonably able to either afford it or wouldn't be willing to buy it. And so they have to price it in a way where they're able to make a profit off of it and also sell it to begin with. And that's a fine balance to achieve. And this goes for any sort of vendor within the furry community and freelance and beyond. You know, furry problems are people problems, so this kind of transfers over to really anything that you can think of. But specifically within the realm of furry, fursuit making might be put in jeopardy, at least as a career or full-time job, which for many fursuit makers it already is. The time sink that goes into making a fursuit, I can imagine, is tremendous. For some fursuit makers, it's not really feasible to be able to do it as a side gig and then do something else on the side because the focus usually is on making that fursuit or making that product. A lot of the cost offset outside of the time invested and, you know, the hourly, I guess, wage that they set for themselves comes down to the cost of the resources to make the fursuit to begin with. I don't know what the cost is per fursuit, and that usually varies per maker, but with the tariff that might be potentially put in place this next year, it has a lot of fursuit makers worried about how much the cost of a fursuit will be, how much they're going to have to up the prices to offset the cost of materials and supplies due to a tax that ultimately is just going to benefit the government in the end. And so that's why I want to talk about this today. Look, this is as political of a topic as I will ever have on this channel. I say this now and things could change within like a month or so. Just like this whole idea of a proposed tariff on imports and exports through the US could very well not happen. We've got 2 months to see where things will change and go, but this is definitely something worth talking about because I think people should be informed about why prices for fursuits might go up to begin with outside of the experience for fursuit makers growing and growing as they're making fursuits more and more through time. So to start things off, what is a tariff? Well, a tariff, put simply, is a tax on imports or exports from other countries. This is usually imposed by the government, in which something will be taxed more based on where it's coming from, and with what Trump has planned, based on this article from CNBC, Trump has said he plans on putting a blanket tariff of 10% to 20% on all imports, with additional tariffs of 60% to 100% on goods bought from China. I also love how in that same article, there's this paragraph that says, Trump has floated the idea that a tariff policy could eventually replace US federal income tax altogether, a convention that the nonpartisan Peterson Institute for International Economics called literally impossible. I love that little tidbit. It's like this idea that, hey, we're gonna make this thing better for everyone, when in the end, you know, tariffs are naturally inflationary, and the only one that really eats the cost in the end are the consumers. Anyone, like all of us at the end of the day, are going to be affected by it. Not just people in the US, but things that are imported or exported if these tariffs are put into place. What, you think the company that makes the fur is just gonna say, well, shucks, guess we're gonna make less money, 10% less money? No, they're gonna up the prices of their furs for anyone looking to buy them that are within the US or in other countries. And to even put it into perspective, this is what fursuit makers are saying about it. I'm gonna have to raise the prices of my pre-mades for MFF to compensate for the fact that I need to stock up on the materials I need before the 60% increase tariff set in next year. I'm sorry, y'all, but making suits is going to get more costly very quickly. Everything I've been working on, manufacturers I've been working with for merch and things, all of it is getting affected, and I'm just so devastated. I was hoping to be able to make a passive income with suitor tools to help me make a living while I focus on working on suits without having to overwork myself. That dream is starting to look less possible. Fursuits are going to be 2 times more expensive because of the tariffs that will apply when he wins. All the supplies we get are from overseas. Nothing is going to be affordable. I might not even have fursuit making as a job anymore, because no one can afford to pay me. I feel like some people honestly don't get it. Fursuit making for some people is the full-time job. Most, if not all, supplies are sent from overseas. It's going to get 2 times more expensive. I'm not complaining to just complain. My job is at stake. My income is at stake. And even with the example of fur, which someone left a very interesting little math lesson in a quote retweet, a yard of fur currently costs around $55 after shipping. A solid color suit needs about 5 yards on average, a total of 205 after shipping. A 60% increase on that is 328 USD. A 100% increase is 410 USD. Your 6K fursuit is going to be close to 10K soon, which I know the math might not line up with a 6K fursuit becoming a 10K fursuit, but you got to keep in mind as well that the cost of living will effectively go up too. That's why you see a lot of fursuit makers panicking and making posts about it, because reasonably, they don't know if they'll have a job in the next few months. And furries all want fursuits at the end of the day. They want fursuits of their character, they want however many fursuits of their character brought to life, and sometimes you want to commission that dream maker. Well, that dream maker might not have a choice but to upchunk their prices. And even as a result, they're gambling on whether or not they have business in the future based on those prices that they've set. That's why it's a push and pull and a big struggle for a lot of not just fursuit makers, but furry artists in general to price their work at what it's worth. Because a lot of times, if you overprice it, you might have people that just might not be able to afford it or aren't willing to pay for it. And the tariff push, if it goes into place, will only amplify a lot of the shit that we see online about fursuits being expensive, no one's able to afford them, and people complaining about whatever the next fursuit price is. I know right now there's a fursuit auction going on for Zuri Studios where the auction has gotten to like $20,000, and I'm sure there are already people complaining about why is a fursuit going for that much? Because people can. The demand for it is there for the experience that there is with a fursuit. I've talked about this many times in previous videos about furry art is so expensive, about how fursuit makers need to be respected more for what they're trying to work on. Everyone wants to grow their business at the end of the day, and they might want to charge more based on the experience that they've gained from working in their field for longer. Fursuit makers do it all the time. In 5 years of making a fursuit, maybe they'll charge more because there's more efficiency in what they're able to make. They're able to do a lot more with their fursuits. They're able to make them look better, feel better, more durable, and so they'll up the prices. If these tariffs are put into place, they might not have a choice but to up their prices to offset the cost of materials to begin with. So yeah, in the end, this is something that affects us all outside of even just fursuit making and fursuits. It's not an end-all be-all. Again, things can change within time. It's only 2 months till any of this may or may not happen. There's no guarantee, but it's something to think about, especially when the next to-be president is putting forward this idea of imposing these tariffs to begin with. But what can we do about this? Well, the only thing that we can do is keep a note of fursuit prices in the future, still try to be respectful of fursuit makers, trying to do what they can. You know, don't buy a fursuit if you can't afford it either, you know, there's that. But there should be other ways, hopefully, to support fursuit makers or freelance artists within furry outside of buying the most expensive thing that they have or the thing that they're promoting. And just be respectful and nice and understanding. Remember that there's a person behind, you know, whatever fursuit maker account there is on social media. They're trying their best to really figure out a price, especially with this coming tariff that that may or may not happen. I don't want to hear one goddamn, oh, these fursuit prices are so expensive. And the only thing I have to respond to that is that little clip from Puss in Boots 2 of like, pick it up. And then it's just like a thread and needle, like pick it up, do it. Learn how to make your own fursuit, because there are plenty of tutorials out there. That's another alternative. You know, you could learn how to make your own fursuits. There are thousands of tutorials and videos out there from makers who have come and gone, makers who are still making currently, tips and tricks and all that. You can research it and learn like everyone else has. That has the potential. You are not outside of the realm of learning how to make a fursuit. So that is an alternative. Keep in mind that fursuits are a luxury item too. They are not a necessity. You can live without one. As much as some people might think you need a fursuit to enjoy furry, which that's on you, not me or anyone else. And hey, knowledge is power in this case. Now you know, and we can figure out maybe if there's some solution to this. Maybe there isn't, but just be respectful and try to help where you can. But on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to let me know in the comments, and if I said anything that you didn't like, be sure to let me know respectfully. If you have any thoughts or opinions on this topic, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. This is again another time to just go and support freelance furry creators in the community. If you can, if not, you know, sharing around their work would definitely be helpful. There are things that you can do that are free where you don't have to spend money. Just a retweet or a share can help tremendously. And that goes for this video too. Be sure to share it around. I want to kind of spread the word about this worry that fursuit makers have had and how it'll potentially shape their business in the future, and how people can be a little bit more respectful and helpful and I guess empathetic in some sense towards makers who are trying their absolute best. I know, a little depresso espresso video, but hey, you know, knowledge is important here. I like putting information out there and giving you guys some idea of where things might lead with furry, so I hope you enjoyed this. I promise the next video will be a lot lighter of a note too. It's not going to be all doom and gloom and negative Nancy political stuff, I promise you that. Either way, that's about going to do it for me. Have a wonderful night, take care, life stay jacket, treat people like people, and that's about it.